Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Daemon.
Hello there. And Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast Unlocked.
Always good to see you guys.
Always a pleasure. And this week we're talking games, specifically next-gen games. Games that are only coming to the next-gen consoles. They don't have to be console exclusives, but they're generation exclusive. So games like Halo Infinite and Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, not eligible for this discussion. We're looking for games that are next-gen only, current-gen only, if you will. Ryan, let's go ahead and start with you. What's the biggest one? What's the biggest next-gen game that you're most looking forward to today?
This was a fun little list to make, so I appreciate this episode. And I'll say a game that we actually have a date for and we know a little bit about. I'm going with Starfield. Yes, it's an Xbox exclusive, and hey, I'm the Xbox guy on a platform-centric show. But this is the next game from Bethesda Game Studios and Todd Howard's team. They have not done anything since Fallout 4 in 2015. So this is it's a big deal, and this year's the 10th anniversary of Skyrim, which was their last big game before Fallout 4. So, we don't get stuff from them that often. And so Starfield being a totally new IP, totally new universe on a new next generation platform, I'm just really excited to see what they do, because I've loved that team's games for a long, long time. All the Elder Scrolls games and all the modern Fallout games that they've done. So that's first up for me. We don't get new IPs from top tier developers super often, because usually when they hit on something, then it becomes several, years, if not longer, of sequels. So this will be a good opportunity to see, something brand new.
So what are you expecting or hoping to see with Starfield? Is it enough to just be Skyrim in space? Because we kind of already have Fallout in space with Outer Worlds, which I thought was great.
Right.
What are you hoping for with Starfield?
Something new. I'm to answer your question. For me personally, no. I don't think Skyrim in space would quite be enough for me. I'm sure that would be super fun, and that's a great template to follow. And you could argue, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that team they've not been one to rest on their laurels. If you look at Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim, and then into their history with Fallout 3, Fallout 4. They've always built upon what they've done. So, yeah, I hope that it does bring Bethesda Game Studios into a bit of a newer space. I hope they do try some new gameplay stuff. Fallout 4 got into a little bit of kind of survival, and you could craft a bit in your settlements. But, yeah, I'm hoping for something really new in the gameplay department here outside of just Skyrim in space.
Okay, Jonathon, how about you? What's at the top of your list of most anticipated next-gen games? And I wonder if you'll go with something that's exclusive to PlayStation.
I suppose just to compare, versus Starfield on the Xbox side, I think on the PlayStation side, there are some multi-platform games I truly, truly cannot wait for, and they're very close to it. But I think for me right now, it's got to be Wolverine from Insomniac Games. I think it's probably the one we know the least about. On the PlayStation side, but one, obviously Insomniac's track record, not just recently, but overall, they've been some of my favorite developers since the Spyro days. And to see what they've built and created with the Spider-Man franchise that is still ongoing. And of course, we're going to get a sequel to as well. I am just so excited to see them take on Wolverine specifically. X-Men is my favorite comic book team, group, whatever you want to say. And to know that their style and storytelling and knack for action is getting applied to one of, if not the most famous X-Man of them all, is really exciting. I'm really hopeful for what that team has in store. And obviously we know very little about it. We've only seen the CGI trailer, but their proven record of late gives me more than enough faith that they probably have a pretty good pitch behind this if Marvel was willing to do another franchise with them.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as one of my most anticipated next-gen games. I love Wolverine, one of my absolute favorite superheroes. But let me ask you this. Insomniac is doing great things with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's very family-friendly. You think they go like M-rated with Wolverine?
I don't know if it will go M-rated, but I do, it's not like we haven't had M-rated first-party PlayStation games before, not from, Insomniac on PlayStation necessarily. But I think that they wouldn't shy away from it if it called for it. But I could also see them doing sort of a like teen pushing the envelope thing, and that doesn't teen rated, and that doesn't mean it can't still tell a serious story. But they've said they're going for a mature, story-driven experience with Logan, and I do think you probably need to err toward the M-rated side if you really want to dig into the ferocity of that character. So my hope is that they're willing to go there if it feels like the project needs to, and I think they'll probably be given the leeway to do so.
Okay, Ryan, what's another next-gen game that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm going to stay in the same vein, stick with RPGs, stick with first-person, large-scale RPGs, because Xbox now, after all their studio acquisitions, they're arguably the home, the premier home for the Western role-playing game. And I'll go with Obsidian's Avowed. We learned a little bit more about Avowed this past week, courtesy of an excellent report, an insider report from Jez Corden at Windows Central, sort of detailing he got a sort of behind the curtain, unofficial look at the game from somebody. And it sounds like it is going to be quite epic and quite, it's the thing I am optimistic about with Avowed specifically is we already know that Obsidian is extremely talented. They've made a lot of great games. You already mentioned The Outer Worlds earlier, Daemon, but what arguably Obsidian's never had is enough time and a ton of budget. Like, you look at some of their great games, Knights of the Old Republic 2, famously, they had to ship for the holiday. And so the ending of the game wasn't really they didn't quite land it. And modders kind of ended up picking up the pieces and reforming the ending as it was supposed to be later. And then also famously Fallout New Vegas was a little rushed too. And had that's infamous story of falling one Metacritic point short of the team getting bonuses, which I hope no publisher ever puts bonuses in the hands of idiot reviewers like me ever again, because we should not be the ones deciding if developers get paid or not. Obsidian now has the full backing and resources of a major first-party company. So I think, we already saw what that can do with Psychonauts 2, a game that is arguably a Game of the Year contender. Microsoft picked up the studio, acquired the studio, and gave Psychonauts 2 a ton of extra time in the oven to really get perfect. So yeah, Avowed, that's my very long-winded answer. I'm very excited for Avowed.
I am as well. Does Avowed even have a release window yet?
It does not.
When to expect it?
Does not. Okay. It'll be next gen only, no Xbox One version, but it's probably pretty far out there. But at least, hey, it's not as far out as Elder Scrolls 6 is.
Yeah, that's true. Which I guess, could also be put on this list for anticipated next gen games as well.
It'll be on the Xbox Series Y, probably.
Yeah,
that's how far away that game is.
Okay, Jonathan, in addition to Insomniac's Wolverine, what else are you looking forward to on the PlayStation side?
To not be too boring, I'm not immediately going to go to Spider-Man 2, even though that is certainly near the top of my list. And in fact, I'm going to say it's a multi-platform release, but I cannot wait for the Dead Space remake. I love that original game. The series itself, certainly went to places I didn't love as much, but 1 and 2 are some of my favorite horror games of all time. And that original still sticks so much in my mind. And so to see the work that they're doing with the remake, I got to speak to some of the creative leads on it when they made that announcement. And there's really clearly a lot of passion and love for Dead Space behind the scenes. It was certainly something the team wanted to do and wasn't sort of assigned to do in that case. So there's clearly a lot of passion for it there. And I really appreciate that they've been also, relatively upfront with the development process in a way that I don't think we see from games of this scale. Of course, it's worth noting that Dead Space is a remake, so people know the original game. There is a certain layer of things that have already been spoiled, I guess, by the original game. But that does afford them the chance to show in progress stuff that they've demonstrated on some Twitch streams and things to an early case that we don't really see with games of this magnitude, especially from a developer / publisher like EA. So to see the work that's going into it at this early stage and how impressive it looks already, the way they're considering fan feedback and just sort of their intentions with developing the same sort of scares and frights and tension that original game elicited so well, but with new next gen, current gen technology is really, really exciting to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Dead Space. It's an interesting one, though. The remake, Dead Space would not be high on my list of games that I would think needed a remake. I revisited it fairly recently, and I think it still looks great, plays great. But I'm happy to be getting a remake so I can experience Dead Space in as beautiful a fashion as possible. Ryan, before we run out of time, any other next-gen games you want to shout out real quick?
Yeah, I'm going to go with one that's going to upset our producer, Alan, because there's no B-roll for it to show in this segment. But I have to say, Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, it's not officially announced, but it has been officially acknowledged by Rockstar. Mm-hmm. And I know people are probably rolling their eyes at that because it's been so long. I mean, it's going to be 10 years or more between Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto 6. But the thing is, for me, Rockstar, they still, I mean, I know they've had some key departures there, but nevertheless, like, they have arguably some of the best talent on the planet, and they inarguably really have kind of unlimited resources to make their games. I mean, we saw that with Grand Theft Auto 5 and really previous GTAs as well, and Red Dead. But the fact is, they have raised the bar for not just open world games, but arguably, in a lot of cases, gaming in general, overall, with their releases. I mean, they've always been the best of the best. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the 5 or 10 greatest games ever made, period. Red Dead 2 is great. But so, yeah, I can't wait to see what they do in a new generation. And after so much time has passed since Grand Theft Auto 5, and even there'll been a lot of time that's passed since Red Dead 2 as well. So, yeah, I can't leave Rockstar out of this conversation.
And of course, we will be getting a proper next-gen version of GTA 5 early next year as well. Jonathan, any last next-gen games you want to give a shout out to before we have to move on?
Again, Spider-Man, just don't want to ignore. I'm very, very excited for that one. But I guess one we haven't mentioned that was showcased a little bit over the weekend at DC Fandom would be Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. A huge, huge fan of Rocksteady's Batman Arkham trilogy and everything they did there. And so it's awesome to see them continue working within the DC space. And it's been so quiet from them for so long. The new trailer that was shown at Fandom didn't really give us a ton of a deeper look at the game. It did really sort of sell the tone. And I think it seems to be hewing pretty closely, or at least similarly, to the tone of what we've expected out of James Gunn's version of the Suicide Squad, a little bit more than the 2016 version. But I really appreciated what that trailer showed. It was in-engine footage. It seems like they're nailing some of the personalities of these characters really well. And, Rocksteady just has a really incredible knack for gameplay and storytelling in DC settings. So I'm very hopeful, even though we've still not seen a ton from that game.
And then we also learned this week, unfortunately, there are a couple next-gen offerings from CD Projekt Red that are getting delayed into next year. And those are the proper next-gen versions of Cyberpunk and The Witcher 3. I believe Cyberpunk is due now in the first quarter of 2022, and The Witcher 3 will be in Q2 2022. Ryan, were these delays a surprise to you? They've been promised to be coming in late 2021, I believe, both of these.
Yeah, so it is a little bit of a surprise, given, I mean, they've been working hard on kind of rehabilitating Cyberpunk, and I am surprised that these need that much more time. I mean, Q1, but Q2 for Witcher, I would have thought that one would have been maybe the one that we'd see first. Maybe I don't have any good reason for thinking that. I just kind of thought, oh, well, that will be the one.
It's just the older game, right?
First. Yeah. But I just hope that the delay is because they're not going to crunch their team. They're going to do it in a healthy way, sustainable way that doesn't demand, insane personal sacrifices from those team members who have been through a lot over the last couple of years at that studio. So, the good news is there are plenty of games to play, both new and other next-gen remasters that are coming. We've got the Grand Theft Auto trilogy at some point before the end of the year. That got officially confirmed. And then, of course, the GTA 5 next-gen version is got pushed out a little bit to next year. So, and then the million other new games we have. So there's no shortage of things to play. But yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise to see Witcher bump out that far.
It'll be interesting to see if Cyberpunk can get a sort of a second wind, a new lease on life. Witcher 3 doesn't need a second chance. It's a beloved game, one of the most beloved games of the last generation. But Cyberpunk could use a second chance. We'll see if I don't know if too much time has passed. If gamers will be willing to forgive and forget when the next gen version finally comes out. Before we close out this week, I have the results of last week's poll. We were talking about TVs, the features in TVs you need to look for in order to take full advantage of your next gen consoles. We asked, what's the most you're willing to spend on a new TV? And the IGN audience are big spenders. The winning results with over 26% was willing to spend up to $2,000. So they want the very best of the best. And you know what? I think they deserve it. Coming up at the bottom was not upgrading this year. Just over 15% said they're happy with their TVs as of right now. But our poll for you to vote on for next week, we want to know what's your most anticipated next-gen exclusive? Something we've been talking about today or something else entirely. Maybe the KOTOR remake, Redfall, another good one, Forspoken, PS5 exclusive. Make sure to vote at IGN.com and we'll share the results with you next week. And that will do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Ryan and Jonathan. Thank you to Alan, who's working behind the scenes to make sure this episode is possible. We'll be back next week, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern on Friday with more PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. We'll see you then.